Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay. Nice to see you again today, this morning online. On the attendance list, there are only 35, yeah. But now we have 37, yeah. Do you know why is that? There are difference in number between the attendance list and the number here on Google Meet.
Maybe because the learning error tadi sempat susah mau absen
No.
ya,
What
sir.
I mean is the number of students in the attendance list is 35. Jumlah yang terdaftar di daftar hari cuma 35. Di sini ada 37. Berarti ada yang belum masuk e-learning ya? Belum masuk ke dalam sistem. Atau ada yang or some of you use two devices?
Iya, sir. Tamara pakai 2 device.
Okay. So that's the problem, yeah. That's what happened, I mean, yeah, not the problem. Okay, our topic today is ICT and language, yeah. So the topic today is ICT and language. So who will present that topic? ICT and language?
Group 3 and Group 4, sir.
Group 3 and Group 4. Group 3, who are they?
Arsi, Siti, dan Tamara.
Okay, and then so you will present first, yeah, our Group 3, and then the presentation will be continued with Group 4, yeah. And then as usual we'll have a discussion, and after the discussion has finished, we'll continue with further discussion if we need to, yeah. Maybe we need some clarification and other things. Okay, now we'll let Group 3, yeah, start their presentation. Okay, Group 3, please.
Yes, Siti will share the screen.
Yes, please.
Oh, can you see the screen?
Yes.
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 Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The Honorable Sir Dedi Kurniawan as the lecturer and my beloved friends. We're coming from Group 3 with me, Arsi Agustina, as the moderator, and Tamara Selfie and Siti Fauzia as the speaker. So today, our group will bring the material about ICT and language. Without any further ado, let's jump to the material. Next slide, please. So the first material will be delivered by Siti. For Siti, time is yours.
Thank you, Arsi, for the time. So we'll start from the introduction. As human beings' main means of communicating, it is inconceivable that language could be left untouched by changes that affect communication. Yet the part played by ICT in the evolution of language has been the subject of little systematic investigation. In recent years, concern over the allegedly pernicious influence of newspapers and television has extended to email and SMS, with email being accused of ruining letter style, writing, and grammar, and SMS being portrayed as a prime menace to communicative skill. However, the view that the media have a significant effect on language is not one shared by linguists, many of whom regard the influence of ICT as peripheral and superficial. The aim of this chapter is not to determine precisely the role of ICT in the evolution of language. Rather, it is to bring together relevant evidence on the relationship between language variation and change on the one hand, and technological context on the other, and to analyze the repercussion for language users and language learners. The next is ICT and the causes of language variation and change. Causes of language change can be divided into two broad categories according to whether they are language external or language internal. Fennell lists language external factors as geography, contact with new versus old phenomena, imperfect learning, a substratum effect, and social prestige factors, whereas internal factors comprise ease of articulation, analogy, reanalysis, and randomness. What is noteworthy in Fennell's account of the forces that shape the evolution of language is the relevance of ICT to no less than three of the external factors. These are geography, contact with new phenomena, and social prestige. So the first one is geography. The importance of geography for language change stems from the fact that distance and topographical features such as the presence of mountains, seas, and plains affect prospect for face-to-face interactions and therefore language contact between speech communities. In turn, language contact influences the evolution of language. Lack of contact results in divergence, while frequent dealings promote convergence. This is not to say that geography is history, as the slogan of the telecommunication industries proclaims. What we have is simply the arrival over the last century of new factors among the forces that operate to produce language change. As Carey explains, with reference to the telegraph, technologically mediated communication had to take account of geographical variation and remove the local, the regional, and the colloquial of a story was to be understood across a wide region. Over the past decades, technologically induced language contact has intensified with the diffusion of satellite, television, and the internet. It seems that the emergence of opportunities for language contact that bypass geographical factors calls into question the suitability of geography as an umbrella term. More significantly, the drawn guarding of geography calls by looking into whether and in what circumstances established models of language change, such as the wave model, remain valid. The next is contact with new versus old phenomena. Language changes in response to the evolution of society, adjusting to new events, artifacts, and ideas, and to the declining importance of certain old phenomena. The linguistic consequences of inventions and of the activities they give rise to can be mostly in the area of vocabulary, with the containing of new words and with extension in the meaning of established lexis. They also take the form of new jargons and varieties. A similar picture obtains with regard to ICT. At each stage, appropriate nomenclatures have been devised through neologism and borrowings, and the spread of the technology has been accompanied by the development of verbal means of managing and referring to the activities that it has spurred. In addition, because it is used to disseminate information, ICT contributes to the diffusion of linguistic change that reflect social and technological transformation outside its own field. And the last is social prestige factors. Social prestige is conferred by factors and through processes that sometimes remain unclear. Typically, however, linguistic forms employed by the higher classes will enjoy prestige imparted by the status of those who use them and will be actively promoted by those in power. The usual linguistic outcome of this propensity to view the language of the powerful in a positive light is that the variety of the dominant elite becomes the standard. Hani argues that the prestige that come to be attached to standard English had more to do with the influence of literature than with its association with London as the center of culture and of political and economic power. All over the world, print has affected the fate of languages, helping to preserve and raise the status of some, whereas its absence had the opposite effect. Barron notes that modes of communication which are given publicity or are valued as a source of prestige have the ability to influence the shape of other modalities. Overall, ICT can be said to interact with social prestige in multifarious and complex ways, both because of the vehicular function. There is no doubt that there is an increase in the borrowing of English terms by other languages is linked to the prestige of American culture, particularly pop music, a culture that has been brought to the rest of the world by modern media. And because the prestige of the new media is transferred to the linguistic forms that they have circulate. In a similar way, the airtime allocated to a different languages of or varieties on radio and television tends to both reflect and contribute to their relative social prestige. The situation is often delicately balanced and is open to multiple influences so that it is liable to change with the passing of time. The next is ICT and the direction of change. The uneasy coexistence of elites and counter-elites that pull language in opposite directions exemplifies the kind of conflicting pressures that language is constantly under. In supporting adherence to a single norm, elites are trying to contain language, whereas by dividing from the norm, counter-elites bring diversity. In either case, ICT helps the linguistic form to circulate. Bakhtin calls the historical processes of linguistic unification and centralization, such as the impact of social elites, centripetal forces of language. The centripetal forces are forces aimed at creating and defending a common unitary language, always threatened by centrifugal forces that work in the opposite direction towards decentralization and diversification. Centripetal forces pull language inward towards homogenization, whereas like counter-elites, centrifugal forces push language outward toward variation. At an individual level, the tension between divergence and convergence takes the form of a balancing act between originality and the intelligibility. As people try to be themselves and find their own voice without compromising communicational efficiency. Someone with limited ability to express themselves is more likely to be concerned with being understood than with appearing original, while, uh, while unconventionality on the part of others will tend to represent an additional obstacle. At the level of society, centripetal and centrifugal forces come in the form of social, political, economic, and technological structures. In common with many other phenomena, ICT may create tendencies towards unification and towards diversification. By bringing together people from diverse backgrounds, electronic communication expands individual and collective linguistic competence. But inasmuch as people then accommodate to one another, electronic interaction also encourages uniformity of language patterns. This is not unlike what occurs with urbanization, where interaction between people from a variety of linguistic backgrounds increase exposure to either linguistic forms and at the same time promote the leveling of differences. I think that's all. Back to the moderator.
Thank you, Siti, for your explanation. The next material will be delivered by Tamara. Tamara, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, moderator. The next material is about ICT and the factors involved in language change. There is ample evidence that in language, as in other phrases, change is frequently the result of the coming together of a number of factors. Thus, although print is often credited with having had a strategic role in the fixing of the English language, it wouldn't have had the same stabilizing influence without the assistance of special set of social and political factors. In general, the high degree of interplay between the various dimensions of life argues against one-to-one cause and effect relationship between ICT and linguistic evolution. However, it is possible to evaluate the implication for language use of various aspects of ICT by historicizing technology. That is to say, one can try and trace linguistic innovation back to their origins by putting ICT into its historical context and then use the context to more fully understand technology. Next slide, please. Okay, the factor that we will discuss first is about properties of ICT and language change. As argued by Ong, the first landmark in the history of ICT is not printing. The first part of call in this book is writing. Since printing would clearly not have had the same impact in the unlikely scenario of being developed before writing and used only for the reproduction of diagrams and pictures. I'll start by taking a quick look at the effect of writing itself. One of the main effects of the invention of writing drastically reduced the importance of memory by enabling the deployment of knowledge through text. If mankind has invented some kind of audio recording device instead of writing, of course, the effect will allow speech to be saved and played back. But this will not be a big improvement because the text can be heard more than once by asking the source to read it again. Next slide, please. Such as writing, recording device audio would have made the acquisition of knowledge a more autonomous endeavor, and this reduced dependence on other may have led to greater originality of thought and language. But it will not bring about any fundamental changes to the language itself. And the reason why writing has such a huge impact on language is that it involves a shift from the oral to the visual. In the technological environment of the time, the shift to visual created different conditions for language productions. This allowed for what might be termed relaxed production as opposed to on the fly, the time pressure condition associated with speech. Next slide, please. Next is about similarities between print and writing. Print and writing have a lot in common. Both fix the text in the state in which they are, then both provide the durability of text by extending the length of time they remain available, and also both make text reproduction easier by allowing faithful copies to be made. But in each case, the print score is higher. Next slide, please. If previously there were similarities, now we will see the differences. The differences between print and writing. If we see from the text improvement, print results are proven to be better by reducing the risk of errors or variation during the duplication process. Whereas with hand copying, no two copies are exactly alike. Printing helps to produce identical or nearly identical copies. As will be seen, the effect was indirect and early printed books often show discrepancies due to the practice of correcting evidence during the production process. In addition, pirate copies often put inaccurate text into circulation. However, Briggs and Brooks state the first disqualification doesn't offer to moderated argument that the printing press favors the relative constancy of text, and print durability is improved. And if we see from the quality of the paper and the binding, individual copies may not be more durable than manuscript, but the ease with which the text can be reproduced provides greater timelessness. Above all, printing is changing the way we understand text preservation. In manuscript, the text is preserved by limiting membership to slow degradation, whereas in the case of print, text preservation is achieved through the spread and expansion of readers. So it can be concluded that digitizing the text requires further processing and allows smooth reproduction with minimal effort and without any ill effect on the means of duplication. And finally, the printing press made the production of multiple copies a much easier and less expensive operation. I think that's all from me. Back to moderator.
Okay, thank you, Tamara. I'll continue the presentation. Next slide, please. It's about social matrix. Next slide. So, It's hardly needs stating that the materialization of any potential that ICT may have to influence linguistic evolution depends on how widespread the new medium becomes and how quickly it is adapted by a significant segment of the population. There may be a centralized legitimizing source helping or hindering diffusion. In the past, national government have often exercised control over which innovation to diffuse, how to diffuse them, and who to diffuse them to. The slow development of the telephone in France in the 1880s is a case in the point. The French government, viewing telecommunication as the preserve of the state and a means of spreading its influence, was so little interested in the development of a system liable to encourage reciprocity and dialogue that the potential for introducing two-way dialogue was lost. This is a telling illustration of the way in which governmental policy can affect the balance between interpersonal and mass communication, and in so doing, influence the kind of language people are exposed to. Whereas in the example above, the balance tilts in favor of one way communication, the effect is to give those in authority enhanced opportunities to intervene in language matters. Next slide, please. So, as well as being a vehicle for language forms and promoting the standard variety by osmosis, print was used to promote the ideology of standard in a deliberate fashion through the publication of works aimed at reducing language variation. And Western European countries in the 16th, 17th, 18th century saw the publication of various proposals for spelling reforms, grammar books, and national dictionaries. In the 19th century, the replacement of dialect by the standard language would be assisted by the development of railways, making communication easier and faster. And the population of the rural areas, reducing the number of dialect speakers, and the spread of formal education. As we have seen, the new mass communication media of the 20th century would initially be pressed into the surface of the standard, while development in mediated interpersonal communication, which in a free society can help stabilization by circulating forms within the self-regulating system, were sometimes viewed with suspicion. Next slide. In addition, to highlight that the impact of ICT on linguistic evolution is subject to outside influences like the educational context and government control. Attempts to identify the origins of language change show that it is difficult to separate technical and cultural aspects of ICT. First, as the early use of the telephone as broadcast rather than a two-way medium suggests, what we consider to be built-in properties may turn out to be imposed qualities. Second, it is possible for the same aspect of language used to arise from different circumstances or characteristics. We saw earlier how the small size of mobile phone screen was conducive to the use of abbreviation, and similar pressures to newspaper column or a small section of script drop to fit a radio or television window. Next slide. So it's about processes at work. That's levels of causality. Next slide. It follows from the above that the role of ICT in the evolution of language varies from case to case, ranging from acting as a trigger to catalyst role and disseminating device. What part ICT plays in a given instance, it's not always easy to decide. How much the circulation of potential models impacts on language behaviors is unclear. Using diffusion success as a criterion, Milroy proposed the following tripartite classification of speaker innovation. Speaker innovation may first fail to diffuse beyond the speaker, and then second diffuse into a community with which he or she has contact but no further, and then diffuse into a community with which he or she has contact, and then subsequently diffuse from the community into other communities via a further innovator who has ties with both the relevant communities. Next slide. So generally, mass media channel give rise to awareness of an innovation, but are not very effective in promoting adoption. Milroy go on to add that there is no reason to think that the diffusion of linguistic innovation will follow principles different from those governing the diffusion of other kinds of innovation. Sitting in support of their claim, the lack of influence of the standard spoken language used by the BBC on the rate of adoption of that standard. So adoption is an easy enough concept to apply the language area. A linguistic novelty, like novel at least to the individual, can be regarded as having been adopted if it appears in the language they produce. And then diffusion can be said that have taken place, presumably of the first occasion when the speaker employs a new feature in the absence of speakers of the variety originally containing this feature. In other words, it is no longer a communication. Awareness is more like complex issue. Awareness of linguistic diversity, of linguistic similarity, be it the existence of another language or variety, or of prosodic, lexical, or grammatical characteristic that may or may not match those of your own variety. It's distinct from the ability to handle language and brings us into the realm of metalinguistics. Next slide. So, what is uncontroversial is that ICT provides encounters with a linguistic range that surpasses what the most extensive traveling can deliver. While all media play a part in this widening of horizons, the role of mass communication is more obvious than that of mediated point-to-point interaction. In a number of cases, broadcast media have promoted a consciousness of the standard and helped to give it authority, while simultaneously enhancing people's awareness of linguistic diversity. Where differences are marked, exposure to unfamiliar features may induce awareness of variation that is not accompanied by comprehension. However, as people meet the new forms in a range of contexts and get used to them, comprehension difficulties diminish. The growing ability of the British to understand American films illustrate that ICT can enhance the chance of this happening. Okay, I think that's all the material from Group 3 related to ICT and Language. For the next presentation, I give the time to Group 4 for delivering your material.
Thank you, Group 3. Wait a minute to share our PPT.
Okay, group 4, yeah? Please share your PowerPoint. Okay. ICT and Language. Okay, good.
All right, here we'll continue to explain the material from Group 3, ICT and Language. Before that, I would like to introduce our member. We are from Group 4, and our member consists Masayu Melinda, and then Nuzuliati Nisa Utami, and me, Ratni Widianti, as a moderator. All right. For the first material will be presented by Masayu Malinda. For Masayu, time is yours.
All right, thank you, Redni. I will explain, and I will continue to explain the material from Group 3. So, ICT in the evolution of language varies from case to case, ranging from acting as a trigger to a catalyst role and a disseminating device. The development of new means of communication and social pressures weave an intricate web of possible influences. It can be difficult to pinpoint exactly the trigger for and contributory factors to linguistic change. And then next, the differential effects. Differential effects is to document in greater detail the effect of ICT on language. The section is not intended to provide an exhaustive treatment of the subject, but aims to give an indication of the diverse way in which ICT affect language. The areas selected have been chosen because they exemplify varying degrees of susceptibility to the influence of ICT. The omission of a particular area is likely to be due to the paucity of information and should not be interpreted as a sign of immunity. And then next, the lexical and semantic change. ICT is acknowledged to have some influence in vocabulary and give rise to the formation of new words or extension in meaning of part of the existing thought. ICT also helps disseminate new and unfamiliar forms and meanings beyond their original context, including items borrowed from other language. Each technological innovation has been accompanied by lexical development. ICT has been an extremely prolific source of new words or new meaning. As a result of continuous flow of new words from the fields of science and technology since the 17th century, scientific and technical terms now make up over half the vocabulary of English. Some of the new terms are known only to specialists, but others have passed into common usage. Well-known examples from English include television, tape recorder, cassette recorder, videotape, computer, chip, mouse, and memory. I think that's all from me. I give it back to the moderator.
Thank you, Masayu. Okay. Next material will be presented by me. Pronunciation. In general, the impact of ICT on pronunciation tends to be limited to the pronunciation of specific words or the particularly silent features, sometimes involving cultivate habits. Analyzing the pronunciation of some type of British pop songs in the late 1850s, Angel found that they employed different accent when singing from when they were talking, using prejudice stereotypically associated by the British with American pronunciation, with such as non-prevoiced R in words like girl and more. Trangel ascribed their tendency, the cultural ascendancy of North American in the field of popular music, which led singers to imitate American sounds when they performing what was a predominantly American activity. Next slide. All right. Spelling and pronunciation. Spelling and pronunciation are traditionally considered as the areas in which standardization is easiest to achieve. Orthographic standardization is a gradual process on which ICT has tended to have a beneficial effect. When if in Britain, at least, standardization initially suffered a setback after the introduction of printing due to the lack of the traditional of uninformatory in craft training or practicing in the early years of the trade. From there on, changes is pronunciation practice from part of the growing interchangeable of speech and writing with pronunciation facilitating access to the learning of messages that are intended to be viewed quickly or being used to capture prosodic features of speech as they would have been used had the words been spoken. A kind of writer's inner voice once again, and it is confront with effects that vary with the medium and with prosodic circumstances and reflect reflect human beings' ability to adjust to different conditions. Overall, there appear to be a stronger link between ICT and spelling and pronunciation than between ICT and pronunciation. This is presumably because spelling and pronunciation are aspects of language that are learned rather than inquired and are therefore instinctually more open to change. Okay, next slide. Okay, register is variety according to use opposed to user functional variation. Functional variation has always existed and unwritten languages have been shown to vary in register. Nevertheless, the invention of writing put in new production conditions that had a major impact of this kind of variation. Next slide. Okay, after studying the pattern of historical register variation in English, Weber hypothesized three separate stages in the involution of written register. One, genesis, and then second, early development. Three, split between popular and specialist register. And in stage one, written registers start to diverge from typical spoken language in line with their different primary purpose and production circumstance. Over the course of stage two, considered to have taken 100 until 200 years in the case of English, a written register evolved to become even more sharply distinguished from spoken register in ways that extend the range of register variation. At the stage three, sees the development of two sharply distinct some register refer that their early courses toward more literate style of care for the needs of a wide public. Next slide. All right, language spread. Scholars agree that contrary to popular national that some languages are better than one other or more capable of expressing wide range of meaning. Languages do not spread or attain international status because of some inherent qualities that make them intellectually superior. Okay, I think that's my explanation from me. And then the next explanation will be continued by Muzu again. Muzu, time is yours.
Okay, good morning. Thank you for the time. I will continue the material from English period. English was in the right place at the right time when Caxton set up the first printing press in the West Limburg in 11476. By this time, English was become established as the language of the nation. There's 100 years earlier, it was still in the competition with French, which still remained the official language of government in London, where in previous century, Latin read and exchanged as the social language of Europe. So in section the English were printed in 14, 1476. In contrast to the French, which in Westminster each use French because it is considered the language of ambitious people. At the same time, Session adopted the dialect of the London and the Southeast, so included in his book. This led to the birth of the new language of English. Okay, next slide, please. And then English was again fortunate in the vein of language in which the telegraph system was developed. Following the building of the first railway telegraph in the Britain in 1837, in the parenting of the Morse code in the same year, in the first public telegraph line was opened in the United States in 1844. In the telegraph period, there are also motto that say having English skills for perfect performance makes all people more fluent in English. Although the graph was slow, it could still help strengthen the relationship between North America, Europe, and the Middle East and India. This was the beginning of the rapid English outside the UK through the ICT in that time. Okay, next slide, please, Mas Ayu. And then the next is the advantages that occurred to English as Britain became the hub of the global telegraph network were compounded by the country's position at the forefront of the industrial revolution. As a result, English in the 19th century became the passport of industrial knowledge before being once more at the center of technological progress. When the first telephone patents were filed in 1876. Therefore, in the 9th century, English became the passport language of industry and became the language of communication between aircraft and control tower. In the end of the mass media, adopted was as their first language except the minor or the local mass. Next slide, please. So, the end is English continued to gain from the dominance for the United States in other areas. For example, because the important role played the United States in aircraft foundation, English is used through the word of communication between planes and control the tower. Next slide, please. Hello, sir. The new media.
Yes. Nuzul, why?
I'm so sorry, sir. Just like my sound doesn't fit in anymore.
We could hear you.
May I continue, sir?
Yes, please. Come on.
Okay. The new media can be regarded as inherently centrifugal, but their effect on language, both globally and any given case, will depend on the broader context, in the particular on the whether they are used to support standardization or diversification. It will also vary with a type of media as the dominating presenter of language in our society at large. The mass media can help new form of expression across the boundaries or their original context to enter other domains, nearby serving a centrifugal function. So, at the end, mass media really helps to develop of language to the wider community because the research of social media is wide and can be accessed by anyone. we can be see in early 1476 there are not many people that know English, but in our time we can be very easy to access and learn language through the ICT. I guess that's all for my explanation. Back to my director.
Thank you, Nuzuliatin. All right, it's the end of our explanation about this material. And then the next section is question and answer. If you guys have any question, let us know. You can type your question in the chat box or directly speak.
Okay. Uh, Now we are going to move to question and answer session. Yeah, we'll have 10 minutes for you to start posting your questions. So every group must have questions. Yeah, so each group. Yeah, so one question for each group at least. Yeah, one group two, group three, group four. Yeah? Just like last week. Yeah. Okay, I'll start the timer. Yeah, 10 minutes, and now the other group could start posting their questions. Okay. Group 3 and 4, do you need time to prepare your answer?
Yes, sir.
Okay, another 10 minutes.
Yes, sir, give us time, sir.
Another 10 minutes, yeah, for you to prepare your answer. Okay. Let's invite group 3 first, yeah, and then after that group 4. Please, group 3.
Okay, sir. So you will share the screen. Okay. It has been 10 minutes, means it's the time for the presenter to answer the questions. We have arranged the questions, so we'll start from the first group questions. So we have the group 1 questions here. I will answer these questions. What is the advantages and disadvantages of ICT in English language teaching? So the advantages of ICT in English language teaching. First, we can get the required information within a fraction of second. Two, learners become more innovative with the help of e-learning. And then third, ICT provides the information to the students, which will be used for them to compete with this competitive world. And then English lessons that incorporate multimedia application can exert powerful motivation and provide bored students with exciting new ways to learn. And five, ICT can make students and teachers to work with current and authentic sources. And the sixth, ICT ameliorate the learner's interaction, verbalization, involvement in group collaborative learning. And then the students can learn independently, and with ICT, pictorial description is available. And for disadvantages, the first one is students get short span of attention because of the ICT in language learning. And then student may open or log on to the unnecessary websites to play games or to watch movies. And then intense requirement for self-discipline and self-direction. Then good infrastructure and trained manpower is required to use the ICT tools in teaching and learning. And then the communication in ICT is taking place between learners and the teacher is only the mediator. So for group 1, does this answer cover your questions? Do you agree or disagree whether or you want to add something? Group 1?
Okay, thank you, Group 3, for the answer. I agree from your answer. And what I got from your answer that there are so many advantages and disadvantages of ICT in English language teaching. For advantages, one of them is we can get the required information within a fraction of second. And for disadvantage is students get short span of attention because of the ICT in language learning. That's all. Thank you for group 3.
Okay, thank you for group 1 for responding our answer. So let's jump to the next questions from group 2. These questions will be answered by Siti.
Okay, thank you, RC. Question from Group 2. What do you think about the uses of language in ICT? So, in recent decades, information and communication technology has provided benefits to the community with large areas of new communication capabilities. In education, especially in language learning ICT, information and communications technology has brought about a rapid impact in the advancement of language learning. The uses of ICT will enable to facilitate the intercommunication of teachers and students. One, through ICT, images can easily be used in teaching and improving the retentive memory of students. Two, through ICT, teachers can easily explain complex instruction and ensure students' comprehension. Three, through ICT, teachers are able to create interactive classes and make the lessons more enjoyable, which could improve student attendance and concentration. Next is ICT can speed up the language learning process by offering additional opportunities for practice outside the classroom. And the last is meaningful learning. Through the use of ICT, teachers can demonstrate that it provides the material in real life. Students get a clear visualization of the material being taught. I think that's all my answer for Group 2's question. For Group 2, is my answer cover your question? Yes, thanks for your great answer, Group 3. So, what I got from your answer is in education, the uses of ICT will enable to facilitate the intercommunication of teachers and students. Through ICT, teachers are able to create interactive classes and make the lessons more enjoyable. Okay, thank you, Zenia. Back to moderator.
Okay, thank you for the answer and the response. Let's jump to the next questions. The questions from group 5. These questions will be answered by Tamara.
Okay, thank you, moderator. I will answer the question from group 5. What is the relationship between language and technology? All technologies affect language in their own way. Technology is a means to expand human reach. Therefore, technology must be linked with language. In the sense then that natural languages and technologies will be essential to enable us to do all kinds of things in almost all areas of human activity. As an example, one can build a language with which to speak via email, with internet application, with a computer or by telephone and so on. Because humans use this type of communication more and more, people will see that technology has an increasingly heavy weight in the way humans communicate with their relatives. So the way technology communicates becomes increasingly evaluated. It is increasingly present in human life and is increasingly being used in relation to the use of spoken language communication technology. This is what is called language and technology working together for the common good. I think that's all. Back to moderator.
Okay, thank you, Tamara. For group 5, it's the time for you to respond whether you agree or disagree or you want to add something.
Yes, thank you so much, RC. I think what the Tamara said already clear. Thank you so much for group 3 for the answer.
Okay, thank you, group 5, for responding the answer. So let's jump to the next questions from group 6. How does ICT enhance English language skills? So I will answer this question. So speaking plays a crucial role in teaching a foreign language. It is one of the most important skills to be enhanced and improved as a means of effective communication. So as to increase students' attention and motivation, teachers ought to create a smoothing classroom atmosphere, and bringing ICTs into practice has a major impact to facilitate and improve learning in general and speaking skill in particular. And ICTs provide interaction between teachers and learners, provide comprehensible input and output, help learners to develop critical thinking skills, make learning and teaching become more student centered, and then promote learners' autonomy and help them feel more confident and increase learners' motivation to effectively learn a foreign language. As a conclusion, the use of ICTs in education has to be highly encouraged as the present students are the future generation who are going to mold themselves, their society, and the world as a whole. Thus, ICTs are viable tools for enhancing the teaching or foreign language speaking proficiency. So that's all for group 6. Does this answer cover your questions?
Okay, group 3, thank you for the answer. I get the point. So speaking plays a crucial role in teaching foreign language, and it's important to improve as mean of effective communication. Okay, thank you for the answer.
Thank you for giving your response. Let's jump to the next questions. Questions from group 7. These questions will be answered by Siti.
Okay, thank you, RC. Question from group 7. Can you give the examples of ICT tools in language context? So there are some kinds of technologies or tools classified into information and communication technology commonly used in language context, such as 1. Interactive multimedia. Interactive multimedia is the integration of digital media including combinations of electronic text, graphics, moving images and sounds into a structured digital computerized environment that allows people to interact with the data for appropriate purposes. Two is computer. Computer is an electronic device which is capable of receiving information and performing a sequence of logical operation in accordance with a predetermined of but variable set of procedural instruction to produce result in the form of information or signal based. Three is audio devices. Audio devices can be used with other media to form an interactive multimedia. However, it can also be utilized separately as independent tool. Number four, internet. Internet can be used as a medium of language learning through email, www or World Wide Web, text, audio, and video conferencing. Number five is television. Television is a system for converting visual images with sound into electrical signal, transmitting them by radio or other means, and displaying them electronically on a screen. Number six is telephone. This telephone medium has not been widely used for language teaching because of the poor quality of analog transmissions. However, there is new invent of digital quality and lower connection cost, which potential for conference calls. Number seven is mobile gadget. Mobile gadgets such as cell phone and smartphone, which are equipped with programs like computer, which enable it to perform as mini personal computer. By using this gadget and its internet connection, everybody could enjoy chatting, browsing, and discuss each other with the wider range. Number eight is social interface. This media provides facility or example that enables an interaction between human and computer. People set up more interaction with computer in a more intuitive way with less effort through writing, voice, touch, eye movements, and other gestures. And the last is interactive whiteboard. An interactive whiteboard or IWB is a large interactive display such as a touchscreen monitor which is connected to a computer and projector. The projector projects the computer's desktop onto the board surface, where users control the computer using a pen, finger, or other devices. I think that's all. Back to moderator.
For group 7, does the answer clear?
Yes, RC, the answer is very clear, and we can get that there are several kinds of technologies that can be used in language context. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you for giving your response. Let's jump to the next questions. The questions from group 8. These questions will be answered by Tamara.
Okay, thank you, moderator. I will answer the question from Group 8. In your opinion, what is the most important role of technology in language learning? Thank you for asking this question. I think that the single most important role of technology in language learning is creating learning opportunities. Technology allows for learning in place where other learning material may be unavailable. It also allows to learn any time of day or night, something that regular school cannot do. At last, it allows for free learning with plenty of material available in English. If the learner can speak English, he or she can learn a vast number of other languages at their own time, pace, and convenience. All of that creates extra learning opportunities that have a positive impact on global language learning. I think that's all. Back to moderator.
Okay, thank you, Tamara, for answering. For group 8, is the answer clear?
Yes, I agree with your opinion. Especially about technology provides many learning materials in English, and it is accessible anytime, so you can create opportunities for language learners. So thank you very much, Group 3, for your nice answer.
Okay, thank you, Group 8, for giving your great response. Let's jump to the next questions. It's questions from Group 9. What is teaching strategies for literacy and language development in early childhood? So, strategies used for language and literacy development in early childhood and ICT capability are the same. use computers for one-to-one work between the adult and the child or for paired collaborative work. This is good for a small group discussion. And whole class teaching, you can demonstrate literacy and ICT skills easily using this method with the help of digital projector and place ICT areas on the edge of the group areas. And then when working one-on-one, introduce basic ICT skills of computers use well as providing context for a wider discussion. Doing this will provide you with a baseline assessment of their ICT capabilities in determining opportune moments for intervention. And then ask the child to type out on a word processor a sentence from one of their favorite stories, then check to see if they are actually learning the ideas and skill you have planned. And as children create things on the screen, the talk will be about what is going on, what they are trying to achieve. As the activity is more creative, the language will be more creative too. This will provide you with a good insight into children's linguistic abilities, and you will be able to help develop their vocabulary and their speaking and listening skills. When you work alongside the children on a computer, it provides you with a great opportunity to model an effective use of software and management of programs. And most importantly, you will model the appropriate behavior when working collaboratively. So for group 9, is my answer clear or you want to add something? Group 9?
Yes, I think it's very clear, RC.
Okay, thank you, Group 9, for giving your response to our answer. Let's jump to the next questions. The questions from Group 10. It will be answered by CP.
Okay, thank you, RC. I'll answer the question from Group 10. How does the use of ICT tools help benefit the learners in English language classes? So research has shown that the use of instructional technology and ICT in particular in the English language classroom can improve and optimize student language acquisition and substantially motivate them to continue their learning and stimulate their creativity and passion. Technology in language learning can boost variety and increase the diversity of learning environment and opportunities and enhance the quality of the learning experience by making class content more varied and accessible to almost each individual learner. Also, ICT tools can help learning. Also, ICT tools can help learners acquire linguistic skills, establish contact and interaction with other language users, and broaden their minds about different cultural practices, values, and contemporary lifestyles in countries where English is used as a mother tongue or as a second language. I think that's all. Back to moderator.
Thank you, City, for your answer. For Group 10, is it clear or you want to add something?
Thank you very much, Group 3. So, I agree with the answer. I get some point that ICT tools can help learners acquire linguistic skill and then establish contact and interaction with other language users and broaden their minds about different cultural practice, values, and contemporary lifestyles in countries where English is used as mother tongue or as a second language. So I think the answer is very clear. Thank you, Group 3.
Thank you, Group 10, for giving your response. Let's jump to the next questions from Group 11. These questions will be answered by Tamara.
Thank you, moderator. I will answer the question from group 11. How can technology help the language learning process? This is a good question because the technology works best when used as a tool to help solve problems. For example, face to face is a highly desirable way to speed up language learning because you are required to use the language to complete all your daily tasks. But picking up and moving to a country that speaks the desired language is impossible for most people. With technology, students can still experience some of the benefits of immersion. Because of the next generation of messaging and social networking, remote students can access fluent speaker of the language they are learning, offering real-world language practice not possible in a traditional classroom. Dynamic collaboration tools foster a sense of community along with interactive learning activities that allow students to participate in class they are comfortable with and remove time and space barriers. In general, technology enabled learning experiences encourage more consistent engagement among students, giving them access to peers and instructors all the time and from anywhere in the world. Technology also offers dozens of tools to help learners in real time. Students can access simplified dictionaries, create flashcards, and surf the internet in the language they are learning. They can find pen pals, conversation partners, and online tutors. And they can find rich examples of the language they are learning rather than being confined to static example from traditional textbook. Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter all our daily language learning practice for interpret learners who want to combine social media consumption with language learning practice. I think that's all. Back to moderator.
Thank you, Tamara, for answering the questions. Now, what about group 11? Do you agree or disagree with the answer?
Thank you for Group 3 for the answer. We are agree. I think it's very clear how technology can help the language learning process, and we get the technology work best when used as a tool to help solve problems. For example, face-to-face is a highly desirable way to speed up language learning, and then technology also offers dozens of tools to help learners in real time. Thank you.
Thank you for group 11 for giving response. So let's jump to the last questions for group 3. It's from group 12. What are the reason for integrating ICT in language learning, especially in Indonesia? So Indonesian ELT is different from its neighboring countries of Malaysia, Singapore, or the Philippines. The opportunities to use English in Indonesia are much fewer than the outer circle countries and are commonly limited to school practice. And English language teachers are often found to lack English language proficiency, while access to resources and materials for ELT is limited. In addition, specific sociocultural issues also impact on ELT teaching and learning activities. Learners view teachers as respected figures, the sole source of knowledge, and asking teachers a lot of questions is impolite. Learners are passively involved, as good learners are those who listen to the teachers and perform the task by avoiding as many mistakes as possible. Overcoming these problems and improving the ELT outcome are possible through the integration of ICT, along with changing the approaches to teaching from traditional teacher-centered to learner-centered, based on the constructivist theory of learning and implementing CLT. ICT enables Indonesian ELT to have access to a wide range of authentic materials and resources necessary for the ideal implementation of CLT. Furthermore, learners could be encouraged to participate more actively through varieties or tasks and could be assisted to learn in interactive and collaborative modes, encourage them to achieve above their current potential. That is, ICT is the medium which complements the constructivist learning theory and current views of effective second language teaching and learning. So that's all the answer for group 12. Is it clear?
Yes, presenter, thank you for the answer. So I think there are a number of reasons, and one of them is that ICT is a good medium for teaching and learning language. Thank you.
Thank you for group 12 for giving the response. Now it's the time for group 4 for answering your questions.
All right, thank you, group.
Now group 4, yeah?
Yes, sir.
Okay, please, you can start.
All right, we will answer a question from group 1. How ICT can be used in English language teaching? ICT are intrinsic tools in many education institutions. The use of ICT increases the scope of teaching. It provides quality learning materials and creates autonomy of learning. Along with academic excellency, students must have English communicative skills for their prosperous future. Curriculum must be made easy by including technological aids. Learners can share their work, which can promote cultural diversity, have positive motivation effect, and raise self-esteem. I think that's the answer. Is it clear for group 1?
Okay, group 4, thank you for the answer. I also strongly agree that ICT is very helpful for students to have communicative skill for their prosperous future. I think it's from me. Thank you.
All right. All right. We will continue to answer group 2. And it will be answered by Nuzuliatin. Nuzul, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Reni. So the question is, what are the positive effects of it on the English language learning and teaching? So I would like to answer that there is no more doubt that the use of ICT has positive effect on language teaching or learning. Its impact is highly depend on the way it's used. The teacher motivation in his severe fire the following impact that seem to the most obvious ones when using ICT to support foreign language teaching. So the possibility to adapt easily the teaching material according to circumstance, learning needs, and responses. ICT allows to react upon the enables to use or research or daily news. It offers access to authentic material on the web, and then possibility to combine or use alternative basic skill. Lecture become more interesting and less ordinary, which boosts learners' engagement. ICT enable to focus on the specific aspect on the less functions and vocabulary. The other advantages of using ICT in the foreign teaching language can be defined like capacity to control presentation, the novelty and creativity. The feedbacks mean computer provide as feedback to student answer through error connection. Then the adaptivity, computers program can be adapted by teacher to suit their student needs and level of language knowledge. Unlike books, which are product in the single uniform format and need to be taught irrespectively of student problem, computer programs are more learning friendly. First and foremost, ICT and the internet in particular provides language learner with the opportunity to use the language that they are learning in meaningful ways to authentic contact. And the second important benefit derived from the use of ICT in a language classroom is cooperation and collaboration with one peers. And the third major benefit for using ICT is ICT provide teacher and student to learners and more effectively with the help of ICT based tool and constantly growing number of available education research language teachers are able to give individual personalized guidelines to the learners. I guess that's my explanation for group 2. For group 2 is that is my answer is clear enough or satisfying enough to you?
Thank you, Group 4, for the answer. The answer has been very satisfying. There are many aspects that you have said, like the possibility to adapt easily the teaching materials, and ICT allows us to react upon and enables the use of recent or daily news or material and some information. Thank you, and it's clear.
Okay, back. Okay, thank you, Group 2, for your response. Back to moderator.
All right, thank you, Nazul. We will continue to answer through a question from group 5. This question will be answered by Masayu. Masayu, go ahead.
All right, thank you, moderator. So now I would like to answer the questions from group 5. So the question is, what are the benefits of using ICT in language learning? So our answer is, most revived studies reveal and demonstrate through research that the appropriate implementation of information technology in the language classroom promotes learning. In change, interaction, and communication boosts autonomous learning, maximize targeted outcomes, motivates the learner, and help them improve their language skill. So I think that's all our answer.
All right, thank you, Group 4. I think your answer is very clear, and thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Masayu. We will continue to answer a question from group 3. Group 6, I mean. What is the role of language in ICT? In education, especially in language learning, ICT, information and communication technology, has about a rapid impact in the advancement of language learning through ICT. Teachers can easily explain complex interactions and ensure students' comprehension. ICTs provide interaction between teachers and learners, provide comprehensionable input and output, help learners to develop critical thinking skills, make learner and teaching become more student-centered, promote a learner's autonomy and help them feel more confident, and increase learners' motivation to effectively learn a foreign language. I think that's the answer. Is this answer cover your questions for group 6?
Thank you, Redney and the group for your answer. I strongly agree that ICT has a great impact in the development of our language, especially in learning the language. We know that nowadays we are very close to critical skills that are helped by the existence of ICT as a means of learning. Once again, thank you.
All right, we continue to answer question from group 7. It will be answered by Nuzul. Nuzul, the time is yours.
All right. Rani, thank you for the time. So for Group 7, how does ICT support language development? I would like to say that talking books is just one way that ICT can promote language development. By combining speech and word, such ICT tool is very in early childhood can reinforce the link between writing and spoken text. At times, they contain a combination of text and picture with the computer reading the text. I think that's all I can answer for Group 7. For Group 7, is my answer is satisfying enough to you?
All right, thank you for Nuzul for the answer. So you said that talking book is just one way that ICT can promote the language development, and I think I agree with you, and I'm very satisfied with the answer. Thank you very much.
Okay, next we will answer question from group 8. It will be answered by Masayu. Masayu.
All right, thank you, Redney. Now I would like to answer the question from group 8. So the question is, what is the best technology to support teaching language? So our answer for this question is technologies such as wikis and blogs and online word processor that allow collaborative writing like Google Docs or e-learning discussion give language teachers give language teachers powerful new tools that can open new opportunities for students to engage in the writing process and display their finished products. So I think that's all my answer for group 8. For group 8, is my answer clear enough?
Yes, Masayu, I really like that you include some technologies that are close to us, and yeah, I think the media that you mentioned earlier really do useful for to develop our language. Thank you, Masayu.
All right, thank you. I will answer a question from group 9. What technology is useful to students with language problems? New technology integrated classroom systems have become popular for language learning in the recent years. Blended learning, virtual classroom, and learning management system are all example of this new era of teaching methodology that top credibility experts are endorsing. I think it's my answer. Is this answer can cover your question, group 9?
Thank you, Whitney, for your answer. I think I already note some points from your answer, so thank you very much for the answer.
All right, next question from group 10. It will be answered by Yusuf.
Okay, thank you, Retni. Here we go again. How does ICT help in language learning? So the use of the ICT increases the scope of teaching, and it provides quality learning material and creating autonomy of learning. Along with academic excellence, students must have English communicative skill for their purposes future. Circumstances must be made easy by including technological aids. So I guess that's all of my I can answer to group 10. Is group 10 already satisfied or have other that other answer that give to us?
Uh, so I can get it from your answer. The use of ICT increases the scope of teaching. It provides quality learning materials and creating autonomy of learning. I think I'm very satisfied with what you have said. Thank you so much for Group 4 for the answers.
All right, let's continue to answer question from group 11. It will be answered by Masayu. Masayu, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Regni. Now I would like to answer the question from group 11. The question is, how do you integrate ICT in language teaching? So our answer for this question is, teacher should communicate clear goals in ICT-based instruction. So there should be supportive community for integrated learning. Effective usage of available resources enhances ICT-based learning, and teachers and students should have clear expectation while integrating ICT tools in classroom. So that's all my answer for this question for group 11. Is my answer clear enough?
Yes, thank you so much, Masayu. And if I'm not wrong, you state that teachers should indicate clear goals in ICT based on instruction given to ICT. Yes, I think that's clear enough. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. I will answer for the last question from group 12. Why do language learners use ICT in language learning? Language education is an area where open access resources, online courses, virtual classrooms, and social networks based on information and communication technology, ICT, are being increasingly used to give learners access to information, promote interaction and communication, and enhance digital literacy skills. I think that's my answer. Is this answer cover your question, group 12?
Yes, thank you very much for the answer. I very agree with your answer that, as well as the point regarding enhanced digital literacy skills. Thank you very much.
All right, I think it's the end of our presentation for today. Thank you all. Thank you all.
Okay, we are in the end of our presentation today. That's all about ICT and language. Thank you for your attention. Have a nice day.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So ICT and language. Yeah. Last meeting we discussed about ICT and communication. Yeah? ICT has changed. Yeah. The way people communicate. Yeah. Now the question: how we in communication we use language. Yeah. Because ICT has changed the way we communicate, it has also some impact to the language we use in communication. Yeah? Now, what do you think? What changes has ICT caused to the language? Kira-kira bisa kasih contoh enggak perubahan bahasa yang terjadi gara-gara perubahan komunikasi yang kita lakukan yang disebabkan oleh penggunaan ICT? Ada nggak yang bisa kasih contoh? Nggak ada? Tadi kita pembahasannya, we discuss more on language teaching ya, ICT and language teaching. Padahal kita 2 minggu lagi ada pembahasan tentang ICT and language teaching ya. Minggu depan ICT and education and then ICT and language teaching. Okay, you discuss a lot about language teaching today. I think you need to focus ya today on ICT and language, bahasa yang kita pakai untuk berkomunikasi ya. Maybe you could think of ya, what is the impact of ICT to language? Misalnya, what do you think of which language do you use more ya? Written or oral? Written or spoken language nowadays?
Written.
Written ya. You feel more comfortable ya when you communicate in written form ya.
Yes.
And you do it more ya? Mungkin nanti
Absolutely.
100 tahun lagi kita udah lupa cara ngomong ya, tapi ngetik terus gitu. Mulut kita mungkin berubah nanti ya bentuknya ya, karena tidak digunakan lagi untuk ngomong ya. Berubah nanti our organ of speech ya. But it would take a long time ya. Lama sekali itu ya kalau mau berubah seperti itu. And also the changes in the status of language ya. Bahasa ya. Mungkin kita dulu susah berkomunikasi dengan orang Inggris ya, native. Sekarang ya mudah. If you have friends native speaker of English, you communicate easily ya, by using the, and also international language is used more now ya. Jadi bahasa internasional lebih sering dipakai sekarang. For example English. And it would it would give a threat to our national language in the long run ya. Mungkin kan kita komunikasi dengan orang luar negeri nggak pakai bahasa Indonesia kan, bahasa Inggris kan. Nah itu ya. Dan juga mungkin lebih gaya ya komunikasi pakai bahasa Inggris ya. Oke. Dan juga mungkin memunculkan kosakata baru ya, singkatan-singkatan baru ya. Kadang generasi terdahulu agak susah memahaminya gitu ya. Apa tuh contohnya?
Kalau singkatan, sir, it's like
Yes,
on the chat. Sometimes we write RN
for right now,
Yeah.
and then like OTW.
Yeah. So you have a lot of abbreviation nowadays, yeah, because
Yes.
but now it is also used in spoken language, yeah.
Sometimes.
The abbreviation that is in written form now we use in spoken form, yeah. Okay, something like that. Yeah. So that's something that you could think of, yeah. The impact of ICT in communication, yeah, that later has its own impact on the language itself, yeah. Firstly, I want you to discuss about that, yeah, but that's okay, yeah. Since you are going to be a teacher, discussing about language teaching and ICT is also important. But we will discuss this in the next 2 meeting, if I'm not mistaken, yeah. This is our 3rd meeting, yeah. It should be 4. It should be the 4th, but we missed 1 meeting, yeah, because of the holiday, yeah, the Chinese New Year. Yeah? Okay, we still have 15 minutes. I want you to make a resume, yeah, of what we are discussing today. 200 words, silakan ya. Ada sisa waktu beberapa menit, 15 ya, mungkin 15 menit. Silakan untuk meresume ya, meresume apa-apa yang kita diskusikan hari ini. Ya, intinya saja 200 kata, sedikit, nggak banyak ya. Jangan sampai berhalaman-halaman ya, capek bacanya. Apalagi kalau nggak jelas ya, maknanya, pusing bacanya. Okay, any question before we dismiss? Mana Aldi? Kok nggak masuk dia? Bolos.
Yes, sir.
Wadah ya. Tadi nggak ngomong-ngomong ketua kelas ya. Are you the only male in this class?
No, sir.
Oh ya.
There is Wahyu, Halim.
Oh ya, Wahyu. Oke. I hope you speak more ya. The males ya, karena sedikit harus lebih banyak ngomong ya, biar kelihatan ya. Jangan sampai kalah ya sama wanita. Wanitanya kan udah banyak ya. Laki-laki di sini kaum minority. Okay, no question. I think that would be all for today. And I want you to use the remaining time to write your resume of our discussion. Okay? Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, see you next week. Have a nice day.